Hey there. Here's your tutorial for day 4, which is October 3rd, Wednesday. So students will come to class with their draft literacy sponsorship narratives, and this class is all about how to give feedback and sort of what you get out of giving feedback. It's meant to break down their assumptions about what a peer review workshop does and what it means to participate in one. So they will bring their drafts to class, either on screen or on paper, whatever. And the first thing that you're doing is a free write and a discussion about workshopping in general. There's a few questions listed here about where you're free writing through. This is a multi-question free write that they don't need to stop between. Really, I like to say just swerve to the next question, start writing about it instead of what you were writing about, because they don't need to be distinct things, really. It's meant to just guide them through this thinking process. So it's talking about things like what makes feedback useful, what's a situation where you got useful feedback if you ever have, and some of them probably haven't. What's most challenging about giving feedback, things like that. So once they do that free writing, they'll turn to a partner and share, and then ask to hear some responses to especially the first and last question in there. That should get some interesting things in the air as you're going through. The next thing to do is to hand out copies of the workshop worksheet. It's a front and back two-pager that is up on Canvas for you under handouts. As we use this one during Comp Camp, so you're familiar with it, it asks them to really break down their analysis of what they're seeing in the other person's thing, to imagine an ideal audience for it, to really break down what it's saying in response to brand, things like that. Go back and read through it before you get here just so that you're familiar. You'll want to read through the whole thing with them aloud just so that they understand where they're going with this activity. After that, let them loose on each other's drafts. This thing usually takes at least half an hour. Might take closer to 45 minutes, depending. Once they're done writing on each other's, they should discuss it with their partner, and then eventually they should turn it into you, and you'll give it back next time. The rationale for them turning it into you is so that you can see what's going on in their process. You won't be grading it in terms of quality, and assuming they didn't, if they put something on the page, then you won't be counting it in terms of doneness really either. This can be a really challenging activity, so some of them might have done a very poor job at it. I mean, it's possible. Hopefully the discussion and the act of doing it will still get them something out of it. And this peer review is much more about the act of giving feedback than of receiving feedback. So even by giving feedback to somebody else, they should understand better what they should do with their own piece. Once you've done the peer review, if you have time, a really nice thing to do here would be to go back to those free write questions that they wrote before, talk about them in groups of 4, and to think, what did this peer review do? How was it different from previous peer reviews? What was the productive work in this? And they might have said it was confusing or useless. It probably won't, but that might be in the air too, and that's a good thing to talk about. So if you have time at the end of the actual workshop, get them into 4s and have them discuss the workshop overall, how it compared to what they were expecting, and what they think they got out of it. I don't have those written down, but you can come up with your own questions there. Last thing you need to do before you send them on their way is to remind them of how to turn this thing in on WordPress, the final version. So take them to the WordPress site, show them how to log in, show them the bar at the very top of the screen with the plus sign on it. That's where they can click and go to posts and then create the post with their narrative in it. You've all done this on our own website before. The thing to remind them of is to use the category label of literacy narrative and to give it 3 tags of their own devising that match the content of their piece, whether that be monster trucks or libraries or LAN parties, whatever. Probably no one goes to LAN parties anymore. Once you've walked them through all of that, just let them know the deadline on that, which is going to be midnight before your next class. So midnight Thursday is when that's going to be due. The other thing, I'll probably have these in time. You may want to bring copies of the extension projects declaration form, which they can use to indicate which extension projects they want to do. They don't need to turn this in until midterms, but it can be a good guideline for them on their own work on these self-directed projects. So look for that on Canvas as well. The main things that you need to do after the class are just to check in on Canvas to make sure they all did the workshop draft, that it's up there before class, and to spend a bit of time reading through those worksheets from the workshop just to see how they did. If there's anything more you should talk about next time. You're not grading them, you're just skimming through for your own information. That's about it. It's really a straightforward day. That peer review worksheet does most of the work. So I hope that it goes well.